Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you are doing well. I want to chat with you a little bit about the Beyond OQ program and how it can benefit you, of course. So a little bit about the program and how it can benefit you in terms of your own recitation and progressing further with your maqamat journey. So if you're seeing this, you've probably taken Overnight Qari with me, like the new version of Overnight Qari, which I started back in around, I think, late 2020. So kind of like through COVID and so on. Or you might have taken an older Overnight Qari course with me, the old version I call it. Or one of these mini courses I had, like a single maqam rust class or a single maqam nahawand or hijaz class. Hijaz, what was called hijaz mini course, right? So I want to chat a little bit about the program, but not specifically only about the program, but more generally about the progression. Like what happens after kind of you got one maqam down, right? You've been through one of my programs. We did say the patterns of hijaz, we did the patterns of nahawand, we did the patterns of ajam. Maybe you're able to use those patterns, maybe not quite yet. But regardless of your ability level at this point, like just so you have a sense of where does this go afterwards in terms of linearly and more like expansively, right? From, okay, I have a basic tune or I have a few patterns that I can work with versus this is how reciters use maqamat generally, right? So I want to walk you through a few things. And again, if anyone has questions, if you watch this and you have questions about your own maqamat journey, this is not a what do you call it? It's not a hard sell or anything of that sort. It's hopefully you find this informative, and it informs you in terms of like what stuff you can do, whether you do it with me or you do it with someone else or you do it on your own, where this goes in terms of your, like what the next steps are in terms of your own maqamat journey. Okay, so there's a few things I want to, maybe I'll break this into several videos so it doesn't get too long, but let's think of it as three kind of, beyond OQ, three pillars or three pillars, right? You have content, okay? You have coaching, and you have community, okay? First one is content, coaching, and community. So maybe I'll just break it down into three separate videos. It might end up being more. Just so you kind of get a sense of the program and how it can help you, and then more broadly stuff you can do. So let's talk a little bit about content, okay? Because sometimes students feel like, okay, when we're signing up for something, what's the content we're getting? Or sometimes the question might be like, hey, I already did this content before. Like I already did hijaz before. I covered hijaz with you before. So then like what's left? What more content is there? Am I revisiting the same content? These sort of questions might come to your mind as you're maybe thinking about this program, or again, thinking about your own journey in maqamat. So what I want to do, let me just show you this brainstorm thing that I have. It's not a lesson plan for Beyond OQ, but it will become the lesson plans, or like it will inform the sessions, the workshop type of sessions that we're having in Beyond OQ. Okay, so let me just hop over here and you can take a look. This is private stuff, guys. This is my own kind of brainstorming. So let me see. I don't know if I can move this guy around. Yeah, I could do it. Okay, so you'll see. I'm seeing myself twice. I'm seeing my own screen and then I'm seeing this video screen. So that's why it's a little confusing. So what I did here is kind of just throw down a lot of different things that come up in the lessons that I teach students in the coaching program, right? So my previous coaching program was the same coaching program, but it was called Accelerator, right? So over time, I do different things with different students, okay? And it really varies. Maybe we'll talk about that in coaching. Okay, let's leave that for the coaching video. But you'll see here, intro to maqam. I'll run you through some of these things quickly. You don't have to kind of look at all of it. Intro to maqamat, familiarity. So for those of you who've been following my programs, you know that maybe last year, 2023, early in the year, March or something of that sort, I ran this course called Intro to Maqamat, okay? Intro to Maqamat, familiarity. And what that was so with Overnight Qari, which I was running, we start learning a maqam. You learn how a maqam works. Let's start from this column, okay? Intro to Maqamat, OQ method. So in the Overnight Qari program, we go through how does a maqam work, right? For a lot of people, this is like a big revelation. It's like you're hearing all these sounds, you're hearing, reciters recite, and you're not even sure like what's going on. And now we break down, okay, the idea of going up and down in pitch with specific intervals. For a lot of people, maybe for yourself, that's like a big learning step, because it enables you to understand the system of maqamat as a whole, which then enables you to learn one maqam and learn other maqamat like with the same system, okay? So once you have this system, this is how maqamat works. It's almost like plug and play, right? We have a 1, 2, 3, 4 of Nahawand. We have a 1, 2, 3, 4 of Ajam. We have a 1, 2, 3, 4 of Bayati. We have a 1, 2, 3, 4 of Hijaz, right? What's different? The intervals are different. We get different sounds, and you work on the ear training and stuff, and that's the foundational stuff, right? So how does a maqam get its sound? Notes, idea of notes, interval spacings, and so on. And we map out a whole bunch of patterns, right, in Overnight Qari. And we do ear training for students that need help with that, like the tone deaf test and figuring out, are we going up, are we going down? Sort of the foundational stuff that helps someone to be in a position where now they can learn maqamat, right? Now, what I found is that, so when I started Overnight Qari, I had this assumption that people already know, like if I say, let's learn maqam Nahawand, people already know what maqam Nahawand are. Now they're going to learn it, okay? Turns out some students didn't really know that, right? Like they didn't have a good familiarity with different maqamat. If you say Ajam, nothing really comes to mind, which is fine. It's just what it was. So I did this course, Intro to Maqamat, the familiarity one, where we went over more generally identifying different maqamat by mood associations, by like remembering different reciters, by sometimes differentiating, oh, this one sounds like the adhan sound, right? And just kind of like a general ability to kind of put a sound to a name, right? Put a sound to a name. I was gonna say put a picture, but it's not a picture. It's a sound, right? So when you say Hijaz, you're like, yeah, that's that sound of the adhan. Right? When you say Ajam, oh yeah, that's a happy upbeat tune. I can't remember it. I don't know the patterns, but it's that happy sounding tune, right? So that was the Intro to Maqamat program, okay? Now, in Overnight Qari, we cover individual maqamat. So you might have taken a version that had Nahawand with Ajam or Bayati and Hijaz, and then there's the other maqamat. So now when we think about kind of like this line here being the Intro to Maqamat and Overnight Qari, draw this line here. Now everything going forward is like beyond OQ, and you can see kind of like the scope of it, right? It gets like, how did we go from, if you thought Overnight Qari was a lot, how do we go from these two lists to now like all of this? And some of these go down too. These are longer lists, right? This one too goes down. Okay, so it gets to be fun. So hopefully you're still following along. There's a line here. Imagine there's a line right here where my mouse is. On this side, to the left of it is Intro to Maqamat, and Overnight Qari. To the right of it is Beyond OQ. Okay, fun stuff, guys. Fun stuff. So what are some of the stuff we would cover in Beyond OQ? First of all, going through the individual main maqamat. Okay, Bayati, Hijaz, Nahawand, Rast, Sika, Slaba, Ajam, Kurd. Okay, and that's where I said some of you might be like, hey, wait a sec, I already did Hijaz, I already did Ajam, right? Okay, we'll get to that maybe in the coaching thing. Some of it will come up here because, as I said, these things are intertwined. It's not like content by itself. Pillar 1, community pillar 2 by itself, right? The community doesn't really exist by itself. It's intertwined with the content and the coaching. The coaching doesn't exist by itself because it's coaching based on the content, right? So it's all kind of intertwined in that way. So so when someone says, oh, I've done Hijaz, well, we're going to see as we go further on this thing, you've kind of done Hijaz, but it might not be where you need to be, like in terms of where practice and things you can do with Hijaz. Okay, we'll keep going. Let's take one maqam for example. So we have Bayati here. So Bayati, example for one maqam. We could have, you have like, what's the right word to put it? Levels or stages? Like there's different things that you do in Bayati, okay? So there's like a basic level where you're just like, okay, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. Can I do the spacings? Are my spacings off? This one needs to be higher, lower. Now this is where like coaching comes in, okay? Well, maybe we'll leave it for the other video, right? Then there's, because I'm trying to stick to content alone here, right? But you can see how it's intertwined. That coaching comes in because if someone is trying to do, now they've kind of drifted into Hijaz. So that's where kind of coaching will come in. Okay, wait a sec, hold up. This space needs to be like this. You need to move this higher, lower. Can you hear it? No, I can't hear it. Try it again, right? So there's that back and forth. But let's pause coaching, as I said. Okay, otherwise this video will get longer than it is already. Okay, then there's more to bayati, right? There's bayati, kind of that middle area of bayati. That middle section where you kind of get now the maqam is opening up. You're getting that sweet sort of sound, that beautiful sound, right? As opposed to just that regular bayati sound at the bottom. Then there's higher up, right? Going going up to the 8, right? 1 5 6 7 8 7 6 5 6 7 8 and coming back down, right? And now some of that we didn't really cover in Overnight Qari in that much detail, right? Why? Again, coaching content. It's intertwined. Because in Overnight Qari, a lot of students aren't really at the level where they're ready to kind of explore fully that 5, 6, 7, 8 area. So we tend to stick more to the bottom, right? In Beyond OQ, it's more open-ended. You'll have fun exploring stuff like that, right? Variations on top. What does that mean? Is that when we get to the higher area of a maqam, let's say bayati or nahawand or hijaz, you're not limited to one like restricted way of doing it. There's kind of different options now. You have it branches out. You could have bayati on the bottom. So now it gets a different color. And what's that color? If you've done it with me before, you might recognize that as Hijaz, right? So we have Hijaz on top, and then we can come back down in bayati. So now you go from regular bayati, which is like just kind of the basic version, to now doing a whole bunch of like fun stuff. You're reciting a bayati, right? And you're moving as you go high into different tops. Let's leave it that way, right? You're changing the feel up top, whether it's bayati or whether it's rast on top or hijaz on top or nahawand on top, and lots of fun stuff that you can do, right? Going between other maqamat now. Maybe we'll leave that for. It'll come up again. Now you'll see these tiles that I have here, these cards. A lot of them will repeat because again they're not linear this way, but they're like intertwined, right? It's like a mesh. Because when we think of transitioning between maqamat, which I have all the way at the end, transitioning between maqamat, which is fun. It's like, that's why it's at the end. It's like we're going more and more fun. What was I going to say? So you can have transitioning as a topic by itself, but it'll start to come up when we do one maqam. If we're doing bayati at an advanced level, we're going to be like, hey, let's at the top switch to hijaz. Or on the bottom, go from bayati to hijaz, back to bayati, right? Then with each maqam, we have, right, and these are individual cards, but they're going to become, on as we move down, like a whole list of cards, right? Usage and reading practice, or more like contextual practice, right? So what does that mean? It means that, and again, this is where it intertwines with coaching. We have bayati, we have hijaz, we have nahawand. It's single maqam, but now we're reading different stuff. We open somewhere in the Quran, we're reciting from the beginning of Baqarah. The way we use bayati is going to be a certain way over there. We open up somewhere else. The way we use bayati is going to be like related based on the same patterns, but it'll be different. And within one section or one reading, we will vary the usage in terms of the patterns, right? And again, this is where it gets intertwined with coaching, because what happens is you're reciting an ayah, and I'll say, hey, wait a sec. On this part, why don't you try this pattern? Or on this phrase, why don't you read it several times with different patterns, and you tell me which one you like, or you tell me which one do you feel resonates or connects with the meaning more, right? Again, different things based on students' levels, right? Someone who is working on the patterns, making sure that the patterns are good, they might just be reading to get the pattern. For someone else, when you're reading, the more advanced students, right? When you're reciting, you're going to want to now be selecting between patterns. Okay, you have this phrase. Why don't you try this instead? We'll talk about that in coaching. Okay. So this, if we kind of make it generic for like any maqam, we have kind of the sequence, the overnight Qari sequence that we go through in the course, right? But now it expands further. The basic patterns and notes, right? So if we did Hijaz, like then we look at the patterns in short ayat, right? Amma yatasa'alun. And then we often go to Surah Mulk. تبارك الذي بيده الملك. Now integrating multiple patterns, right? Sometimes we do this in Surah Mulk, for example. What's an ayah in the middle of the page? وَلِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ عَذَابُ جَهَنَّمَ وَبِئْسَ الْمَصِيرِ. Going higher in the maqam. إِذَا أُلْقُوا فِيهَا سَمِعُوا لَهَا شَهِيقًا وَهِيَ تَفُورُ. And then implementation. So all this now above here is almost like overnight Qari level, right? Overnight Qari level. Stuff that you might have done with me already. And now you need further practice, right? Again, going to coaching. I know these videos are going to be a little bit intertwined because the things are intertwined, right? They're not completely separate. And that's the beauty of this Beyond OQ program, that you kind of get these pillars and they're intertwined with each other, right? Which is how maqamat, in my opinion, should be learned, right? It's kind of like this intertwined. You're learning the material, you're trying it, you're practicing it, you're experimenting. There's a lot of usage built in and so on, okay? Then adding more fluctuations, advanced usages, okay? Branching from one pattern to the next. There's sequencing in longer ayat and paragraphs. This is something we don't really do in overnight Qari, to be honest. Sequencing, reading practice, getting better with the maqam and more contextual reading. So we talked about this, contextual reading. You're reading something, an ayah. There's a part of the ayah you want to emphasize. Maybe I'll do separate videos on these just to post on my YouTube or something of that sort. The whole idea of tasweer al-ma'ani, like how do you convey meaning, right? You're reading an ayah. There's a part of the ayah which is emphatic. How do you, as a reciter, even within one maqam, you're still reciting, we're doing Hijaz here. How do you use Hijaz in a way that conveys that emphasis that's already there in the ayah? So you're kind of like bringing it out, right? Sequencing in longer ayats and paragraphs. So this is interesting. We don't do this really almost at all in overnight Qari, because overnight Qari we're kind of like patterns, implementation of the pattern. Pattern, implementation of the pattern. But now when you have a whole section, like if you're reading, for example, all of Surah Mulk, or you're reading like a whole page, sometimes there's a whole sequencing, okay? Like it's not just emphasis in one ayah, but it's like there's a whole paragraph. There's like an opening to the story. It builds up. Then there's something emphatic, and then it closes off. And then a new section starts. So sequencing, how do you sequence the different patterns in a way that makes sense with the progression of the maqam, right? That's something that students who've taken overnight Qari and they try to practice on their own, they'll often struggle with. Because what might end up happening is repetition. Again, coaching. That's for the coaching video. But the student might be like, hey, I can do this pattern. However, it's sounding kind of repetitive. Why is it sounding kind of repetitive? Because they're out of like, say, 10 patterns that are available or that can technically be done. Their experience is limiting them to like, say, 3 patterns. So they tend to start the ayah the same, tend to start, another ayah the same, tend to start the third ayah the same. So it becomes repetitive even though they're in the maqam. We'll leave that for the other video though. Sentencing. We'll go through this quickly. This is fun stuff. Sentencing. Repeat cards of sentencing is here as well. Stringing patterns together. Working on longer ayat to incorporate variations. Right? Mapping out a paragraph or a longer melodic sequence. Meaning, what does this mean when I say melodic sentence? So if we have, in overnight Qari, we did this a little bit. It's probably like a lesson 6 type of thing, right? In overnight Qari, it's like a lesson 6 type of thing, where it's like we have one sequence and you can kind of practice branching to other sequences and completing a longer sentence, right? Like, so for example, if I say in Nahawan, we say, if I start with the down pattern I teach you guys, that's one pattern. Then we have 1 5. We have 3 4 5. We have 1 2 3 4 3 2 1. And now they're kind of like separate patterns, but what you want to get is a longer sequence where you can say something like right? You like that. You like that. I know you like it. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. It gets to be fun because now you're no longer dealing with individual patterns on a list, but you're learning how to sequence into something longer. Now, when you're reciting, you're relying on that. You can swim. You can swim. You're not just kind of like flailing. Okay. Branches of maqamat. Branches of maqamat. Individual maqamat. Branches or combinations. Okay. So this is the next thing that's really fun. I have this love-hate relationship with the furu', as they're called, these branches of maqamat, because I don't think I think they're sometimes overemphasized, and for most students, the main maqamat are enough in terms of achieving their desired purpose of reciting in a way that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that is beautiful like to themselves, right? And that they feel the recitation. Now, these come, I don't really emphasize them in terms of these names. You'll see all these names: Shawq, Afza, Zanjaran, Suznak, Bastanika, Rusika, Iraqi, Nairuz, like stuff like that. To be honest, I put this down here just because I was brainstorming. But the way I teach these is very much centered around, they're all like variations or combinations of the other main maqamat. Okay? So I don't emphasize them. I don't make you memorize, oh, what's Suznak? Actually, if you ask me right now, what's Suznak? I don't know. But if I look up my notes and stuff like that, I can do it. It's probably something like Rust with Hijaz on top, right? Or maybe that's Nairuz, right? So for example, if you have Rust and you go high into Hijaz, you kind of emphasize that a little bit, you come back down into Rust. It's really nice. It sounds really good. But that would fall under reading practice in Rust. I'll say, oh, let's add some Hijaz up here, right? Based on the student's level, let's add some Hijaz. Go higher, add some Hijaz. And you learn it through practice rather than memorizing names per se. But there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of like Bayati, you can go Bayati Shuri, Bayati Husseini, which are, again, different combinations, right? Hijaz, Kurd, Nahawan, different styles, right? We have like Sheikh al-Husri style, Nahawan, Sheikh Minshawi. So there's a lot of room in a program like this for exploration, like where we're doing something, we're saying, hey, let's read in Nahawan. Let's also explore some of these other styles, right? The Hijaziyya maqamat, which have gained popularity in recent times, Maqam Rakbi, Banjaka, so on, right? The names, again, not that important, but sometimes, like recently with a student, we had done bayat. So a lot of them, not a lot of them, they're all based on these main maqamat. So if we say Rakbi, for example, which is very common, right? People will ask me, oh, what's this reciter doing? It sounds like interesting. It's a different maqam. It's basically bayati, but a different style of bayati. So that's where, again, the coaching comes in. I would help a student and be like, this is how it's related to this, right? So it's content, but it's also coaching because we're like doing it. And recently I was doing this with a student in the coaching program. We were reading in Rakbi. We didn't have much explanation to do because, we do it and we just read, okay? Different maqamat. Advanced topics. Okay, long video. But I know you're enjoying it. If you're interested in maqamat, this stuff would be fun for you. And I don't think... Okay. I was going to pat myself on the back and say, I don't think you'll find this kind of stuff elsewhere. Maybe you do. Maybe you do. Not in terms of the content. I mean like this kind of brainstorm. I haven't seen this before. When, I myself was trying to learn maqamat many, many years ago. I didn't have any sort of roadmap of this sort, or like, okay, here's what you need to do to progress. Here are the types of things that make a recitation go from kind of good intermediate to like advanced, But these are stuff that come up, and I've done these stuff before with students in the coaching program. Now I'm just organizing a little better. Advanced topics or skills. Okay, some of these we talked about. Sentencing. Qarar in Jawab, going higher in each maqam. Taswir al-Ma'ani. Taswir al-Ma'ani, to be honest, I don't know why it's not here as a separate thing. This is like a whole deck of cards by itself. Okay? Maybe it falls under here, specific reading exercise. Taswir al-Ma'ani is like the what is it? I was going to say the cherry on top or the cream of the cream. The cream on top, which doesn't make sense. It's basically like the pinnacle of what we're trying to do, right? You're trying to recite the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's not just a song like to sing it. We're reciting because it's meanings that are there to impart guidance, like we're supposed to be affected by the guidance of the Quran, by the admonitions of the Quran, by the feel good, by the good glad tidings of the Quran, right? So the reciter, especially when you get to an experienced stage, what the reciter is doing is taswir al-ma'ani, painting a picture of the meanings. Painting a picture of the meaning. So we went over this a little bit with one of these earlier. Where was it? Something here, contextual practice, right? So you're reciting something and there's something to be emphasized. It's not you. There is sometimes an element of the reciter's choice, right? Adding emphasis within usage of one maqam. Sometimes the verse stands on its own and there's something clear that needs to be emphasized and it's the emphatic thing in the verse. Sometimes it's the reciter adding emphasis to this part of the verse versus the other part of the verse, right? But you're using your voice to do that. Sometimes within one maqam, sometimes by going from one maqam to another. So adding emphasis by using another maqam, which brings us to this last deck of cards, transitioning. Indicating questions versus statements, using maqamat to indicate happy versus sad, people of Jannah versus people of Jahannam. Conversations, for example, the beginning of Surah Maryam alayhi salam, there's a back and forth between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Zakaria alayhi salam. How do you use the maqam in a way that it doesn't just sound flat words on a flat paper, but rather it feels like a scene, that you're immersed into the scene and there's an actual back and forth happening. It is super cool. Maybe I need to do a video on that too, just kind of demonstrating. But that's something we do in the coaching program. That's like a standard kind of reading that we've done with students over time. And, I'd love to do it with you guys as well. So we can practice it sometimes with known combinations. For example, going between Bayati and Hijaz, or going between Nahwan and Rast, or different things. Surah Baqarah, story of Adam, we have a back and forth between the Malaika and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? The Malaika are asking, how are you going to create this being that's going to cause so much bloodshed, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, you don't know what I know. There's a whole scene there. It's not flat words on a flat paper. It's a movie, right? It's a movie in sound. Okay? This stuff is fun. Reading exercises. Okay, let's skip that. Exercises or workshops. These are kind of like different topics that don't really kind of fit like the progression of learning a maqam per se, but they kind of are related. So for example, listening to different reciters. We did a little bit of this in Overnight Qari, right? Where we're doing Nahawan and we take a bunch of different examples of reciters and say, okay, let's see how they use Nahawan and how it relates to the patterns that we learned in class, right? Then there's another level where you're not necessarily tying it back to the patterns in class, but you're just exploring different usages, right? Okay, let's listen to examples of Mujawid reciters reciting in Bayati. How do they start in Bayati, right? Listening to Mujawid. And these actually, some of these I feel like will end up becoming mini courses that maybe are available separately. Not for you guys, like it would be in the program. But maybe it becomes a separate course that others can get, like Intro to Mujawid mini course. It's something that's been on my mind for a long time. So these are like these wild card kind of stuff that, based on what you guys are interested in collectively as students who join beyond OQ, we can get these things into the program. Okay? Meaning we have space to do these sorts of things based on student demand, right? This stuff's fun for me. I mean, this video is already like way too long. If I talk about maqamat, I'll keep talking. So if students are like, hey, we want to kind of do an adhan workshop, it's, bismillah, we'll do an adhan workshop, right? Within, of course, the framework of trying to get these stuff done first, the main stuff. Lastly, what do we have? Discussions around maqamat, history, and permissibility. There's actually a book that I recently have been exploring, and I need to order it, that has some interesting stuff on this. It's a question that comes up every time, like with different batches of students. So it's something useful for you guys, right? Not necessarily as like we're going to spend a month on it, but as like a workshop, as like something that kind of broadens your understanding of maqamat more generally, right? Vocal stuff, breathing, vocal tone, etc. I am not an expert on that, but it's something that's always been on the list as, hey, maybe I learn it and we add it in, or maybe it's something we bring in a vocal coaching kind of expert that can help you guys with that. But there's a lot of space for other things, right? Adhan workshop and so on. Okay. Lastly, transitioning between maqamat, and we'll end there. This also, I think, will eventually become a standalone course. Because it is pretty cool and it's pretty advanced. And I've wanted to teach this like formally for a long time. I have been teaching it in the coaching program that has been previously called Accelerator, but to different students under the pillar of coaching, meaning based on a student's level, we've been doing these sorts of things as opposed to teaching it like a topic per se. Okay, so that's why here it's under content. Why transition? When to transition, right? How to transition, right? So how to transition, it's so cool. When you understand how to transition using the Overnight Qari method, right? Then it removes the guesswork and it becomes super easy. Obviously, there's practice involved, but conceptually, it becomes super easy to figure out, okay? Why transition? What's the point? Like where, when we're reciting, would we want to transition? We're reading a bayati. Will we randomly just keep switching between bayati and hijaz, for example, or bayati and nahwan? No, there has to be some sort of like a reason, right? Related to the meaning, the topic changes, something. So we get to explore that, okay? There's a common order for transitioning between the main maqamat. There are common combos that go well together, right? Should I tell you? No, we'll leave that for beyond OQ. Oh wait, some are here already. My bad. Bayati to hijaz side by side, or bayati going high to hijaz coming down. Variations of bayati on top. Variations of hijaz on top. Nahwan to ras and tabay. Different, whole bunch of things. Ajam to sabah. Okay, I'm gonna hide that. That's for beyond OQ people. So bismillah, I hope that is a long video. And I let me come back to me. That's a long video. Oh wow, half an hour. But I hope that proves beneficial to you in terms of understanding why you are where you are versus where reciters are where they are, right? So there's kind of like, this is where I am, this is where I want to be, right? You're not going to necessarily become Sheikh Afasi or Sheikh Minshawi, rahimahullah, or whatever, right? But the idea is I'm here right now. I maybe kind of have a tune. I took Overnight Qari. I can kind of do this maqam, but I want to progress. And I want to get a little bit more advanced. And I want to add more depth to the recitation. So I hope that this video showed you a little bit like not necessarily, we didn't talk about coaching community yet, but maybe I'll combine that in one shorter video. But showing you like this map of like a whole bunch of different stuff that is, I've organized it linearly, but it really goes out like a web, right? That you're at this point with one maqam, and then you can do like so many different things. And that's the content, right? That's the content or curriculum kind of part. Now the curriculum is like basically taking these topics and organizing them into different months, and there is room for like cycling through different maqamat, and also these other workshops or other topics, or exploring kind of transitions and different things. We went over a whole bunch of stuff. I hope that proves beneficial, right? Beyond OQ is very fun. It's very fun. If you enjoy the idea of maqamat, or you enjoy experimenting or exploring, it's very fun. It's less rigid than Overnight Qari, where it's very much, Overnight Qari is like, this is lesson 2. I can tell you right now, lesson 2 is where we do the structure of maqamat, right? And that's not going to change. If someone, like advanced comes into Overnight Qari, whatever, or they're like, I already know what maqamat, it doesn't matter. Lesson 2 is lesson 2 of Overnight Qari, right? With some space for Q&A and stuff. But beyond OQ, the way the content is by its nature, right? By the way the program is by its nature, it's more flexible and exploratory. And when you combine that with the coaching and the community and stuff, it really is an experience for you guys to explore maqamat and go further in your recitation. If you have any questions, long video, my apologies. I do get carried away. But if you find this beneficial, then I'd love to see you in Beyond OQ. Or if you have questions about the program and the specifics or details or so on, then do ask, and hope to see you on the other side. And I hope you find this beneficial. Keep us in your dua. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.